Does the very existence of science eliminate our need for God entirely? Or is it possible that science and God could both be true? As the 20th century progressed, more and more people started asking this question. You can see it on the cover of Time magazine in April 1966, which asked, "Is God dead?" And this kind of questioning has only become more common since then. Why is that? Many of the pioneers of modern science, such as Kepler, Newton, and Maxwell, openly proclaimed that their scientific discoveries were examples of thinking God's thoughts after him. But there were also many influential scientists of the 19th and 20th centuries who claimed there was no need to believe in the existence of a supernatural God to explain the features of the natural world. Take, for instance, Pierre-Simon de LaPlace. When Napoleon asked him why there was no mention of God in his new book on the stars and the solar system, he responded that nature with its matter, energy, and forces could produce and maintain our solar system. There was no need for a God hypothesis. Charles Lyell's widely read text on principles of geology declared that former changes in the Earth's surface could best be explained by reference to causes now in operation. There was no need for God to explain geological formations. Charles Darwin, in his profoundly impactful book on the origin of species, avowed there was no need for a designer to account for the origin of species of life. Natural selection, acting on natural variation, accounts for the appearance of design in living things. J.B.S. Haldane and Alexander O'Perrin, by hypothesizing a reducing atmosphere on the early Earth, claimed there was a naturalistic explanation for the origin of life. Thus, there was no need for God to produce life from non-living matter. By the time of the centennial celebration of Charles Darwin's publication of On the Origin of Species in 1959, the voices of those who were convinced that science and belief in God were in conflict had multiplied and become more strident. Julian Huxley, honorary chairman of the celebration and grandson of Thomas Henry Huxley, Darwin's bulldog, would proclaim, "Today, the God hypothesis has ceased to be scientifically tenable, and its abandonment often brings a deep sense of relief." By the middle of the 20th century, science, despite its theistic beginnings, seemed to have no need of the God hypothesis. However, since the Time magazine article in 1966, 3 significant developments in the sciences have arisen to challenge the secular consensus that arose in the wake of that controversial article. Stephen Meyer points out in his book, Return of the God Hypothesis, that the evidence has become overwhelmingly strong that, first, the universe, space, matter, and time had a beginning. Second, the universe, our solar system and Earth, are remarkably fine-tuned to support life on Earth and have been since the beginning. And third, even the simplest forms of life at the biochemical level contain massive amounts of digital information being used to produce and maintain an untold number of molecular machines and complex processes. These 3 20th century discoveries have led prominent scientists like astronomer and cosmologist Allan Sandage to rethink their scientific materialist worldviews and give thoughtful consideration to the God hypothesis. Dr. Sandage's story is featured in Meyer's book, as well as Eric Metaxas' national bestseller, Is Atheism Dead? Meyer recalls attending a conference in Dallas, Texas in February of 1985, when Sandage not only described the astronomical evidence for the beginning of the universe, to which Edwin Hubble and he, as Hubble's protege, had contributed significantly, but he shocked many of his colleagues by announcing his recent conversion to Christianity and making these observations. Here is evidence for what can only be described as a supernatural event. There is no way that this could have been predicted within the realm of physics as we know it. Science, until recently, has concerned itself not with primary causes, but essentially with secondary causes. What has happened in the last 50 years is a remarkable event within astronomy and astrophysics. By looking up in the sky, some astronomers have come to the belief that there's evidence for a creation event. Listening to Sandage and other world-renowned scientists wrestle honestly with the question of ultimate origins and challenge openly the long-dominant materialism of the scientific establishment had a profound impact on Stephen Meyer. It helped him to see more clearly that if the material universe of mass, space, energy, and time came into existence a finite time ago, then matter and energy could not be good candidates as explanations for the origin of the universe. It also helped him to see there is good scientific evidence that points to a supernatural designer, and to decide to focus his doctoral program, and later his lifetime work, on the study of the history and philosophy of science as it relates to the theory of intelligent design. Dr. Robert Jastrow of the Goddard Space Institute, a religiously agnostic Jewish scientist who also attended the Dallas conference, had published a book several years earlier, God and the Astronomers, in which he discussed the obvious theistic implications of the Big Bang theory. In a memorable conclusion to his book, Jastrow observed that the discovery of a definite cosmic beginning is an exceedingly strange development, unexpected by all but the theologians. They have always accepted the word of the Bible. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. The development is unexpected because science has had such extraordinary success in tracing the chain of cause and effect backward in time. For the scientist who had lived by his faith in the power of reason, the story ends like a bad dream. He has scaled the mountains of ignorance. He's about to conquer the highest peak. And as he pulls himself over the final rock, he's greeted by a band of theologians who've been sitting there for centuries. These renowned scientists find coherence between science and belief in God, as do I.